Hi, W the Fixing Elf here, and in today's video I'll be showing you how to repair the bonnet catch on this 2006 Suzuki Wagon R. Here we can see the problem. The bonnet is not latching down, so we need to investigate and find out why this isn't happening. So let's get this repair started. The first thing we need to do is create a little space. So we'll start by removing the 3 black plastic push pins. This is the first one you see me removing now. Usually they pop up very easily with this tack lifter. Then we move on to the second one. Sorry for the shaky camera angle here. Let's make quick work of this second push pin. As you can see, it comes up relatively easily. This tack lifter is really good for removing these. Well, at least normally it is. But I'm having a bit of a mare with this one today. I don't get why it will not come out, but it's just playing up. But if we bear with it, we'll get there in the end and it will come out. So now it's time to move on to the third and final one we need to remove. So again, it's a simple matter of just getting the tack lifter in there and prying out. You can also use a screwdriver for this. I also believe they do specialist tools just for removing these as well. But I'm going to use this tack lifter as I find it really handy for this. And there we go. We now have the last one out. So the last thing we need to do to create the space is just pry up on these the top of the bumper, just to release the 2 tabs, as you see me do here. I know some people say to remove the whole bumper to do this, but I think it's not really needed. As you'll see, we'll have plenty of space to remove the bonnet catch. So now it's time to start removing the bonnet catch, or the hood latch, depending on what you want to call it. I chose to use a ratcheting spanner here, but you can also use a screwdriver or a regular ratchet or a regular spanner. If you're interested, I've done a what's in the toolbox on these ratcheting spanners. You can check that out in my what's in the toolbox playlist. As you can see, we're just ratcheting away here. Get these 2 top bolts undone. Ideally, and what I'll do later in this video, is I'll leave one in, just because it's easy to keep a top one in. We'll remove 2 at the bottom as well in just a moment. For now we just keep ratcheting away. As you can see, we've got them out. I'm just realising now that I've got to tell you the size of these fasteners. They are 10mm fasteners. Now the fastener is nearly unthreaded, I'll just switch over to finger action and just wind them out with my fingers. And once we have them both out, we'll move on to the bottom 2. Now let's get the bottom fasteners out using 2 6-inch extensions. God, that was hard to say. I slide them through the grill and onto the first fastener. This can be quite tricky because you have to go through the grill. But trust me, this is the easiest way I found to do it. Beats removing the bumper. Even though at one point during this I did decide to remove the bumper. You can carry on working these out. Here's a different angle and a different view of the 2 fasteners. As you can see, they're quite tucked away. Now I've got the first of the 2 fasteners removed. It's time to work on the other side. This gets slightly more difficult as I didn't leave a fastener on the top. Whenever the catch starts to pull down onto the bolt that I'm trying to unthread. As you can see, I start to thread in a fastener back on the top just to take the weight. Once this fastener is back in, I can then carry on removing the bottom fasteners. Again, this is quite a fiddly process, but we'll get there in the end. It's just a matter of patience and a bit more persistence. We finally have the fastener out. As you can see, it comes out on the socket, which is very lucky for me. Now we can remove the bolt that we're putting at the top. It doesn't take long as we only put it in hand tight. The next step is to remove the bonnet release cable. Bear with me while I move the bonnet catch into a better position. To start removing the cable, we need to remove the ball end first. This simply hooks out from underneath the catch that has been held in by. This is easy because the spring is broken, as you can see in just a second. Once that's off, you just need to remove the stopper. This is quite a tough little thing to do. I tried doing it by hand at first, but it just will not remove itself. So I got the tack lifter in again, and with a bit of gentle prying, it pops off, as you see here. Now we can move on to dealing with that spring. Here you can see the old spring. It's pretty worn out and snapped in half. Here's the replacement spring, nice and shiny. Now it's time to reinstall the spring. I'm sorry about the footage being quite shaky here, but I'll do my best to explain what I do. First we hook the new spring into the hole, and then we try and stretch it to reach the leather. This is quite difficult. The spring is really strong. You can see it's quite shaky here, sorry about that. But eventually I get it hooked in using the help of my tack lifter. And then here's just a look at the spring in place. You can see the two connection points. So now that the spring is in place, it's time to give this latch a good old lube up. So I grab my favourite penetrating oil, and now we just quickly give it a good old spray. I'm really soaking it here, just to help get into all the nooks and crannies. You can see now I flip it over to lube the other side. I'm using DP60 here, which is probably my favourite penetrating oil, but you can use whatever penetrating oil you like. So one last thing to do before we put this catch back on the car, and that is just to set the latch itself. So you take a flat bladed screwdriver like I do here, and just drive it down through the lock mechanism until it latches. This is just so you can attach the release cable to the actual latch itself. If it's not set, you won't be able to attach it. With that done, it's time to reattach the cable. This is just the reverse of how we took it off. So we start by putting the stopper on, and then we hook the ball underneath the latch. This is a bit more difficult as the latch is tensioned, but it will be fine in a moment once we hook it round with the tack lifter and a bit of persistence. Sorry about the shaky camera here. I did my best to keep it steady, but it's always the way to do things move. There you are, that's all back together now. Before I fasten this down, I'm just going to test the latch to make sure it works. So that's what we're going to do here. As you can see, it all works well. Let's get this latch attached to the car. So to start off with, I'm just going to hand tighten these upper bolts down. As you see me do here, I just run them with my fingers. Goes quite well. Let's just say where I had the bolts off, I gave them all a good soaking in DP60 just to help prevent against rust. I also did the holes that the bolts come out of. So we're nearly done now. We tighten these down by hand. They don't need to be overly tight, we'll tighten up properly at the end. But just for now, just get them hand tight just so we take the weight where we put the bottom two bolts in. Now it's time to reinstall the bottom fasteners. Much like we did when we took them out, we thread the extension through the grill, and then as you can see we thread them into the holes, just using the hand to start with. Just twist around the extension until you get them right and go in. Make sure they're not cross threading. The last thing you want to do is cross these, then you just take the bumper off. And then we get the ratchet and we just ratchet him down. Start with one first, you can see, just ratchet it down. And then all we have to do is switch over to the second one. It's a bit tighter to get the extension on it, but once it's on, we just tighten that down. And that's the bottom two bolts installed. Time to finish tightening up the top two bolts. So to finish tightening these top bolts, I started with a screwdriver. As I said before, you can use a spanner, you can use a ratchet, and spanner, or a screwdriver for these. So I just start with a screwdriver here. Just tighten these down, just tightening down with a screwdriver. I'm going to swap over to the ratcheting wrench here now. Just ratchet it down with ratcheting wrench. Just keep going until they're both tight. It's not a terribly long process. Again, it probably wouldn't be quicker to use the ratchet, but I felt like using these ratchet spanners, or wrenches, whatever you want to call them. So now it's time to install the 3 push pins, starting with the top one. As you see, it just pushes back in, and then move to the side one. Again, these just push in really easily. I also forgot to mention that I put the 2 red tabs back in, that just pushes back on as well. And then finally the last push pin goes in, and that's reassembly complete. Now just to test it quickly. First of all, test to make sure the bonnet closes. As you can see, this one closes fine. We can't pull it up, so we've fixed that problem. Now it's just time to test to make sure that it still opens with the latch release inside the car. So as you can see, this one pops up, and that's the job done. If you enjoyed this video, why not drop a like? Any questions or feedback? Let me know in the comments. I normally drop 2 videos a week, so if you haven't subbed to the channel yet, you should, and then you'll never miss another video. Do you know anyone else who would enjoy watching this video? Then feel free to share it with them. Thanks for watching until the end. Have a sensational day.